Is your problem with your podcast that it's not big enough? That it doesn't have enough downloads? Or is your problem that you're not converting the audience that you have? Or you're not retaining the audience that you have?
Your podcast should be your most powerful business development tool, a trust and authority builder, and your content creation engine. Let's help your podcast help your business with the StoryTrust.media podcast. Here's your host, John Gehring.
It's quite possibly the most toxic lie in podcasting. That is, you need a bigger audience. The reality is, you very likely don't. Now, this is totally counterintuitive, and you're saying, John, what do you mean I don't need a bigger audience? I'm optimizing my SEO. I'm running paid ads. I'm sharing everything on social media just to try to get people to check out my podcast. And no, there's nothing wrong with doing any of those things. But is your problem with your podcast that it's not big enough? That it doesn't have enough downloads? Or is your problem that you're not converting the audience that you have? Or you're not retaining the audience that you have? There's two ways to grow a podcast. You can get new listeners, new audience members, new followers, or you can retain the ones that you already have for longer. And you know what most of the internet talks about? Of course, getting new listeners. Of course, growing your audience to the millions, because that's what makes a successful podcast, right? Not so fast. What the famous podcast influencers and people who promise to grow your show by 300% over the next 6 months don't tell you is that it's not all about the number of downloads. It's about the quality of each of those downloads. And in fact, too often, the numbers lie. You may not need more listeners. You may just need to keep your listeners longer. A simple math equation will help shine some more light on this. The average podcast retention is incredibly low. Yeah, the average podcast retention, you don't even have half of your audience lasting through the first several minutes of your episodes. So what's the solution? Get more audience members. Double, triple your audience, because then more of them naturally will last through your show. Possibly, maybe. Or could the solution be to create higher quality content and build more of a relationship and more trust with the people that you already have clicking on your podcast so that they do stay through? It's like the famous quality versus quantity conversation in sales. You can send out 1 million mass emails, and maybe 0.1% of those emails will be responded to. And out of those, maybe another 0.1% of those will book a call with you. And maybe out of those, another 0.1% of those will buy from you. 1 million cold emails, 1 or 2 people actually buy in the end, right? The same thing with podcasting, right? And I'm exaggerating the numbers, but say 1,000 people click on your episode, 5 of them make it to the end. What's the solution? Find 100,000 more people to click on your episode so that 500 of them make it to the end. It could be. Or is it more effective to, with those 1,000 people, convert a higher percentage of them to make it to the end? What's your goal with your podcast? Let me just ask you that first of all, right? Is it to have as many downloads as possible? Is it to have the vanity metrics of the YouTube subscribers and the amount of downloads and reviews and all of that? And I'm not saying all of that is bad. In fact, numbers can certainly help build credibility. But if that's your sole goal with your podcast, you're going to find that a large audience oftentimes doesn't even convert into business. It doesn't even convert into any trust whatsoever. And you scratch your head like, this podcasting thing, it's not working for my business. It's not helping me. Content is not helping me improve my bottom line. Because you're doing it all wrong. Because you're focused on quantity and not quality. Remember, if you focus on quality, if you focus on retaining people by following through on the promises that you're making to them, following through on the value that you say you're going to deliver, following through on helping them find the solutions to the problems that your audience has. Now it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 or 100,000. A higher percentage of those are going to stay. And yes, down the road, you want to grow your podcast? Okay. We got to attract new people. We do. That's the bottom line. But your problem right now, if you think your podcast isn't big enough, or you're stuck at 27 downloads every week and you're like, I just don't understand, may not be that you need more listeners. It may be that you need to retain those listeners through the end. Important statistic, TSL, or time spent listening. No matter where you host your podcast, whether it be through Spotify or RSS.com, which I prefer, or any of the other syndicators, you often see this statistic. Sometimes you need a pro plan or an extra pro plan to be able to see it. But if you can see that statistic, that's the one I really want you to look in on. Instead of getting all caught up in the sexiness of numbers and vanity metrics, how long is your audience staying on your show? That's a more direct reflection of the quality of your show. You can have a great show that's never found, or you can have a terrible show that's found a lot, but doesn't actually convert. That's a big thing. People are like, I think my podcast is great. Like, why aren't people finding it? Those are two totally separate things. People don't find something just because it's great. But if it's great, and a lot of times I agree, I say your podcast is great, which means that the 50 people that are finding you are going to stay through the end. And that's more important than a podcast that's total crap that 1,000 people are finding, but nobody's staying through to the end. And the people with the great podcast look at the other people with the terrible podcast and they go, why do they have so many listeners? Why do they have so many followers? They're so focused on the attracting new people, but they're not focused on following through with the value they're promising. Ultimately, the value will win because then you'll get reviews and word of mouth and people will share it. And ultimately that will win, but it takes a long time. So up front, if you're frustrated, the answer might not be to get more, to get larger audience, to attract more people. The answer might be to fix the beginning of your show, fix your niche and your focus and your target audience, and make sure you're delivering the value that you're promising. And that way, you could have a podcast that 50 people check out a week, but it could help your business grow dramatically. Because out of those 50 people, over half of them are staying through the whole thing. Out of those, maybe 30 that stay through the whole thing, half of them are booking a call with you. Now it's a huge lead generation source, and it's not even close to the biggest podcast. It's not even close to the audience of the podcast that's not getting any value out of it. So it's really important to focus on quality over quantity, nurture over growth. Because ultimately, are you just looking to start a podcast to see a specific number of followers or downloads or whatever? Or are you starting a podcast to help your bottom line? To help establish you as an authority and build trust with your audience? If you're doing that, you shouldn't care how many downloads that you have. You shouldn't be so caught up in all that. You should be more worried about the consistent value you're providing and if you're actually really getting true results from your show, which can happen with fewer people than you think. So your problem in podcasting, you may not need a bigger audience. You just got to pay attention to the right metrics.
Thanks for checking out the StoryTrust Media podcast. Learn more about what StoryTrust Media can do for your business and book a free consultation at storytrust.media.